Alright guys, it is Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021 at 11:01 p.m. Alright, so to start this video talking about God, what does it mean to put it in God's hands? In Hebrews 4:3, when we put everything in God's hands, that doesn't mean that we don't have a part to play in our situation. There are times when the Lord will tell us just to be still and trust Him. There are also times we must all give us something to do as we wait on Him for our answer. He will give us something to do as we wait on Him for our answer. So it's important to put our lives in God's hands. We don't know how our lives are gonna go. You never know, when's the last day you're gonna live. It's always great to be prepared. I always talk about being prepared on this channel, talking about getting prepared for hurricane season, getting prepared for the possibility of power outages, not only in California and Texas, anywhere in the United States, because I believe it was the government had said, and I made a video about it before, the government had given a warning saying the possibility of power outages is here. I made a video specifically on the people who run the electric grid of the country were saying that we are vulnerable to attacks. So it is important to be prepared in case of emergencies. So while you're prepared, put everything in God's hands, because without God, we wouldn't be anywhere at all. Alright, let's start. A mega comet, or a minor planet, is approaching on a very eccentric orbit. So we have an object within our orbit that takes almost a light year from the sun, is about to pay us a visit. We have almost a decade's warning because it's unusually large for a visitor for such a large distance. It can become the largest comet ever seen. Although the estimates of the object 2014 UN-271's trajectory are changing rapidly as we find more observations in the records, the current best guess is that it came within the orbit of the planets 3 million years ago, and it will be here longer. And it won't be very long before it comes back. So this large object is on its way. Let's take a look, see. This other article, it says, don't panic, but a gigantic comet is currently inbound towards the sun. While scanning older data for a telescopic survey of the sky, astronomers discovered a very interesting object called 2014 UN-271. It is a giant chunk of ice and rock that normally spends its time far out past Neptune, but it is now heading into the solar system, and it will be about as close to the sun as Saturn over the next 10 years. To be clear, a lot of new comets we find dip pretty close to the sun after spending a millennia out there in the black, but this is one different for quite a few reasons. One is how ridiculously elongated its orbit is. It goes for about 1.6 billion kilometers from the sun, just outside Saturn's orbit, to a mind-numbing 2 trillion kilometers out. That's a fifth of a light year. From the distance, the sun's gravity is so weak, a whisper could push this thing into interstellar space. Another is its size. A big comet might be 50 kilometers wide, the size of a famous Hale-Bopp comet, which visited the inner solar system in the 90s. This one, and I'm still reeling from this, is a staggering 200 kilometers wide. Let's take a look. 200 kilometers wide is 124.2 miles wide. So this is a very large comet. And it is gonna be passing the sun, as you see here in this map. It says the orbit of the current position in 2021 of the newly discovered megacomet 2014 UN-271. The orbit is tipped over 90 degrees to the plane of the planets as it gets about close to the sun as Saturn. So it's gonna be passing by the sun, between Uranus and the sun. Be very close to Saturn there. Alright guys, so heads up, that's going to be in our solar system. Alright, let's take a look at some stories we have from Mary Grilly News. Check out her channel. I'm going to leave the link to this video. The UK government is looking for temporary body storage service. So it is looking for temporary storage for mass deaths. So this is a big heads up. What are they looking to store more bodies for? Is there another pandemic coming? Is there something else that we have no idea about that they're preparing for just in case? I also heard that the possibility of lockdown in July that could be permanent for the UK. I'm not 100% sure on this. This is just what I heard. Um, so until I find either an article or more substantial information on the topic of a possible lockdown that's permanent in July for England, I'm just going to leave this as hearsay. But that's what I'm hearing, that there could be more lockdowns, and now this story from Mary Greeley News saying the UK looking for temporary body storage for mass deaths is quite shocking. So I'll leave the link to this article for you guys. Alright, next. Let's take a look here. We have from Dabu77, unexplained mass bird deaths in Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, Maryland, and Virginia concern scientists. So more bird deaths. Let's take a look. Scientists don't know why hundreds of birds are getting sick and dying across the U.S. Hundreds of birds are dying without explanation in parts of the South and Midwest. Wildlife experts in at least 6 states and Washington, D.C. have reported an increase in sick or dying birds in the past month. The most commonly afflicted birds are blue jays, common grackles, and European starlings. We're experiencing an unusual amount of birds mortality this year, said Kate Slankard, an avian biologist with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources. We have yet to figure out what the problem is. The conditioning seems to be pretty deadly. So symptoms include crusty or puffy eyes, neurological signs of seizures, and an inability to stay balanced. Experts said the birds have been behaving as if they are blind and exhibit other abnormalities such as not flying away when people get close. They'll just sit still, often kind of shaking. Slankard said it's pretty safe to say hundreds of birds in the state have had this problem. So a lot of birds are experiencing this. One thing that comes to mind to me is in the Bible. It says that birds, animals of the field, and fish of the sea would be taken away. So that's something to keep in mind when you see all of these things happening. It was stated in the Bible. Alright, let's take a look. Next, we have the National Hurricane Center and Central Pacific Hurricane Center is pretty clear except for this disturbance outside of the Lesser Antilles above South America. It says a disturbance with 10% chance of cyclone formation in 48 hours. Showers and thunderstorms associated with a tropical wave located a few hundred miles east of the Windward Islands remains disorganized. This system is expected to move west-northwestward at 5 to 10 miles an hour into an area of stronger upper-level winds by Thursday, and its potential for development appears to be decreasing. Formation chance through 48 hours low at 10%, and formation chance through 5 days low at 10%. So it seems that its probability of a potential for development is decreasing. So that is great news. So other than that, it is pretty quiet out in the Atlantic. We just had Claudette, who left the it went through the Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi area, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and then headed out into the Atlantic. So it's pretty much quiet. It just brought a lot of rain to my area here in North Carolina. Alright, let's take a look. Next, we have the U.S. Navy sets off giant explosion to test USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier. The blast registered as a 3.9 magnitude earthquake. So the U.S. Navy has started a series of tests on its newest and most advanced aircraft carrier by detonating powerful explosions to determine whether the ship is ready for war. The first of its tests, which are known as the full ship shock trials, occurred on Friday when the Navy set off a giant explosive event near the USS Gerald R. Ford. Images of the video showed an enormous burst of water shooting from the ocean as a result of what carrier officials called a 40,000-pound explosive. So pretty much that is a pretty, look at that, that's a pretty large explosion right next to a ship. So apparently they do that to test new ships. A lot of rumors were going around whether they were trying to sink Russian submarines or if they were actually doing tests on their ships. Who knows? But something to keep a heads up that the possibility of that off the shore is possible. Alright. Next, mysterious spiral appears in the sky over the Pacific Ocean. Do you see that spiral there? It says, people across the South Pacific Islands, including New Caledonia, Tuvalu, Samoa, and Fiji, all reported spotting the same spiral phenomena in the skies on Friday night on June 18th. The spectacular spiral formation baffled viewers, but recorded video and photographs of it took to social media to share what they saw. I'll leave the link so you guys can check out the pictures of the spirals. Pretty much, it came out to be that it was a Chinese rocket. It says, according to New Caledonia's Astronomy Association, the culprit was a Chinese rocket that took off from Shenyang Launch Center on Friday. So that looks pretty eerie to be seeing that in the sky, but it is just a rocket launch. Alright, next. Russian warship practiced sinking aircraft carrier 35 miles off the Hawaiian coast as U.S. places F-22s on standby. For weeks, Russia has mustered a large fleet of aerial assets in the Pacific Ocean near Hawaii in what's been widely recognized as Russia's largest Pacific military drill since the end of the Cold War. The Pentagon has closely monitored the somewhat unprecedented exercises, which have been seen at least 20 warships, submarines, fighter jets, and long-range bombers operating a mere 300 miles of Hawaii's coast. But in a new alarming statement, the U.S. Navy is confirming that at one point Russian vessels came a mere 35 miles of Hawaii's coast as the massive war games were underway. While stressing that the foreign military assets stayed within international waters, spokesman for the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command Navy Captain Mike Kafka said at the closest point, some ships operated approximately 20 to 30 nautical miles or 23 to 34 statute miles off the coast of Hawaii. We are closely have been tracking all vessels. Alright guys, so heads up if you live off Hawaii, you got some activity off of your coast. Alright, so remember to place everything in your life in God's hands because we are living in very tumultuous times. God is everything and guides us to safety every day. We don't know the safety and the dangers that we've been taken out of the way of every day without us knowing. So please remember to pray for your neighbors and pray for the people experiencing all these hardships out there today. We need prayers. Alright guys, hit like and subscribe for more news and see you guys next time. God bless you guys.